talk to you a little bit about tradition. Old world tradition, new tradition, tradition of various sources. Now, those of you who have known me for a while and have listened to me talk and have been around with my club for a little while, or who are just personal friends, you know and have heard me say before, tradition is a prison. Now, let's back up and analyze this for a moment. The idea of tradition is just something that is passed down culturally, sometimes within a family, sometimes within an organization, but loosely speaking, culturally, passed down through the generations. This is how we do things, this is how we observe things, these are the things that we do to represent this, these are the things that are symbolic of this, and we do them, and we do them, and we do them regularly, and we do them like clockwork. And I have a problem with this, and that's that over time they lose their meaning. They become shadows or bastardizations of themselves, or worse, they never had any meaning to begin with because they were based on superstition long since disproven. And that's a dangerous thing to fall into, because then we start doing things and we don't know why we do things. My father-in-law used to tell this story of a woman would make, Thanksgiving ham or Christmas ham or whatever, and before she put it in the pan, she would chop off the end of it. And every year she would do this, and one year her daughter asked, well, why do you chop off the end of the ham? And she's like, well, that's how my mother did it, and that's how I learned how to do it, so that's how I do it. And then the next year they go and do that, and the little girl asks her grandmother, well, Mom says you chop off the end of the ham, why do you do this? And the grandmother goes, oh, the pan was too small, so I had to chop off the end of it to accommodate the smaller pan. But see, over time, over years, and this is one generation, the meaning of it, the purpose of it was lost. Now, I apply this concept of tradition being a prison, specifically within martial arts. It applies very well within the world of philosophy and religion, but I apply it mostly within the world of martial arts because the traditional arts were built for a reason within a certain context, and over time it gets diluted. You have instructors who have broken away from the traditions, or instructors who got their black belt but didn't invest any further into the concepts and the traditions and whatnot, and they kind of just took what they had learned up to this one point and said, oh, now I know everything I need to know. It's kind of like going through high school and saying, oh, I'm prepared for the world. How many people are prepared for the world just out of a high school education? Not many. Some more than others, certainly. I mean, there's always room for individual, error and absorption rates and all that. But the general point you're looking at is that going only so far and saying, I'm stopping here because this is how it was done before me, is foolish. On the other side, let's say conversely, you find a tradition that is artistic, poetic, beautiful, and it doesn't necessarily fit in with these other paradigms, but it speaks to you, and it gives you some psychological comfort, and it helps remind you of your own mission in life and whatnot. That's fine. That's fine. You absorb and internalize it and make it your own, and you use that as the platform for your mission. Some people do this via religion, some people do it via martial arts, some people do it via psychology. There's all sorts of ideas out there, things that are not hard and fast black and white. We clutch onto these ideas of, well, this was my springboard because I fit very well within this tradition, within this method of doing things. I don't necessarily know why, and I urge you to inspect and analyze constantly. Why? Why is the most important question. You know, they say there's the four W's and the one H, or, you know, in English class in elementary school they always said the 5 W's, but one of them's not a W. Anyway, you know, but who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. The most important questions you could possibly ask ever. Because we need to know. Living an oblivious life, living in this safe zone of just oblivious peace is, it's foolish. It's downright foolish, because eventually something's going to come along and challenge you, and you're not going to have an answer for it. And if that thing doesn't back off and decide that you're not worth pursuing anymore, it will crumble your world around you. And then you will be left with nothing, and you go, oh, I'm lost. So I urge you, understand why, who, what, when, where, and how. Understand all of that. I want you to explore and analyze. And if you find something that is technically a tradition, if you are way into, pardon me, if you're way into, you know, the Native American scene and doing the powwows and the dances and the smoke lodges and all that, if that's what speaks to you, do it, but understand why you're doing it. If you're into traditional Kung Fu, do it, but understand why you're doing it and what it's for. Understand why it speaks to you. Analyze, internalize. Specifically, and what spurred on this conversation is I was asked by, in fact, my oldest friend. I've known him longer than anybody else outside of my, you know, blood family. And he speaks of the neo-paganism and the old traditions of, you know, of the Vikings and the Celts, and looking back to the old gods and the old traditions and the old religions. And it's not that he believes in these old gods, but it's going back to our roots, this idea of going back to our roots, because we're tired of all the bullshit, we're tired of all the snake oil salesmen and the confusion of, is this, or is it that, or is it this, or is it that? And to a very large degree, I applaud him, because he finds something that speaks to him. You know, you'll see that I wear Mjolnir around my neck. I am not in any way, shape, or form a neo-pagan. I don't believe that Thor exists or ever existed. I don't believe in magical hammers. But I love the story. I love the representation. And to me, the stories, the fables, the myths are beautiful. There's some downright ridiculous shit. And there is some very non-noble, some very atrocious stuff in these old myths. The same characters doing very inconsistent things. You know, in the one moment speaking of nobility and honor, and the next moment having sex with an 11-year-old, or changing sex and turning into a horse. You know, I mean, you've got all sorts of things. There are just ridiculous and atrocious things within these old myths. You know, and it's not that anybody's going after you and saying, this is how it was, this is history, this is the order of events. These are stories that help us explain the things that we don't know. And as our knowledge base increases, we no longer need the stories to explain what we don't know. But these stories serve a secondary purpose, and that is the artistic, the poetic. They speak to us on a more emotional, a more essential level. I certainly don't believe that there's a soul or anything like that. I believe the method and mechanics of life are very, well, mechanical. But aside from that, there is a deep psychological longing for certain fulfillments, whether they be primal or environmentally spurred on, genetic, whatever. we have psychological needs based on our lives and our experiences and all that. And sometimes these stories help us get through. These mythologies help us make sense of things. They help us, give us something to latch onto. You know, warriors need these heroic stories of nobility and victory. I know I need those stories. They help me derive purpose from the path that I've chosen. Because despite the fact that I train in fitness and nutrition and pursue the martial arts quite, viciously, I don't just go around and fight all the time. I didn't join the military. I didn't, seek to join any organization where I would go and do fighting. And there are various reasons for that. But beyond that, I'm not looking to necessarily live the life, the very short and painful life, of somebody who is in constant battle all the time. But I admire the resolve. I admire the strength. I grew up with the cartoon action heroes of the 1980s and the 1990s. And with that being the case, those were my heroes, those were my idols, those were my avatars. They were the ones that I looked to for inspiration. And so I draw up from these stories the direction and purpose that I choose for my life. And mind you, I choose my direction and purpose. It is not predestined. There is no destiny. There is no fate. That's all bullshit. There is no guiding hand. My life is mine to choose, and I choose to be training and prepared in case of violence. I don't go to seek out violence, though I do on occasion compete in sport violence. I don't go and seek that out, otherwise I would be a corrections officer or a soldier or a law enforcement officer. I'm not, for various reasons. But I do choose the warrior lifestyle because it speaks to me, because it is the story that I've latched onto that fires me up the most, that gives me the most purpose, the most aim in my life. It's something that I see value in, and it's something that others see value in, that I feel I can help others with, and they can help me with. It's a mutual benefit. So when you look to traditions, remember, on the one side, yes, tradition very much is a prison. It very much can be a prison, because you're going to look to things and go, this is the way it is because this is the way it is. If that is your answer for why you do anything, it is because it is, you need to look deeper. You need to look a lot goddamn deeper. On the other side, though, if you're looking at this and go, this is the mythology I have chosen. This is what I've chosen not to necessarily believe in, but this is what I have chosen as my guiding principles. This is what inspires me. This is what makes me feel purpose. This is what swells the blood into my heart and makes me just, passionate about life. Maybe there's something there for you. For some people, it's the strategy of gaming. For some people, it is the struggle of the iron. For others, it is the struggle of the blood and sweat and fists and knuckles. And, for some people, it's music. For some, it's painting. For some, it is purely philosophy or psychology. For some, it is writing. The list can go on. These are all just examples. But I guarantee you, you are looking to others. You are looking to those who stood before you and going, well, they did something I like very much. I want to walk in their footsteps. And eventually you will. Or at least you will notice that, if you pursue it long enough, that you will be walking merely in your own footsteps, but you used their template to go, hey, they got something, and I want a piece of that. Because all knowledge is aggregate. All knowledge comes from the observation of the world around us, including the others around us, and we take those bits and pieces and put them together and we fill in the blanks on our own and remix it into our own thing. And that's a good thing. Imagination is as important as knowledge and exploration. Speculation is great. Let it lead to observation. Let it lead to experimentation. Let imagination guide you in that what-if question. But then take that what-if question and go, well, maybe, and let's follow it until the logical end. It's all an open book, you know. It's just this open-ended journey. It's not necessarily a destination. It's just constant change and evolution. You know, evolution is just change over time. And we're just looking to find some peace and find some purpose. For right now, for me, it's Kung Fu, and it's parkour, and bodyweight calisthenics, and club bells, and playing guitar, and my wife, and my pets, and coffee. I've got a number of interests and quote-unquote passions. I'm not a fan of that word, but for lack of a better term. Find what makes you tick. Find what drives the blood through your veins, what gets your heart pumping, what takes your breath away. Find those things and follow them to their logical conclusion. And if there is no logical conclusion, follow them until you draw your last breath. That's all I've got for you. But just remember, don't latch onto a tradition unless you know why, and who and what and when and where and how, but know why. Know the underlying principles of why you are following something or someone at all times. Never, ever blindly fall into this or that just because other people are doing it. Einstein, born to a Jewish family, I believe Jewish, and he's quoted as having said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing I believe, but he said something to the effect of, I am the most religious non-believer. It's important to understand that sometimes the community, the brotherhood, the ceremony, the art and literature, the poetry, are all important parts of who we are and how we identify, how we choose to live our lives. But you don't have to fall into the foolish parts of the tradition. It's not an absolute. It's your life. Have fun with it. Do what you need to do. If you want to be a religious non-believer, by all means, be a religious non-believer. If you want to be, you know, a traditional neo-pagan or a traditional, you know, Qigong, Chinese medicine person, however they refer to themselves, any of that, go through with it. Search and search and search and find what works for you and find what works for those whose lives you impact. If you hit a dead end, keep searching. Keep pressing on. Do something. All you got to do when you hit a dead end is turn around and go until you find the next path. That's it. You don't just go to the end and stop and that's it. Keep searching. Keep analyzing. So I'm going to leave you with that. Have fun with it. Enjoy your stories. Enjoy your myths. Enjoy your traditions. Just remember, tradition truly is a prison if you let it be. Good journey.